All right, so I'm back in. I didn't want to bring you along for the boring part of the job. So I basically took measurements of the garage, length and width, and I established where I want the offset to be off the wall for the pot lights going in. So I got the four corners in. I'm going to string it up right now. I'm going to get the rest of the lights in. There's going to be 9 altogether in here. Sounds like a lot, but like I said, I'm going to throw it on a dimmer switch. I like a really even light just because of the things I do. But you know, I don't always want it blazing lit. So the dimmer switch is handy. You know, I can tone it down a little bit if I want to. I can, you know, bring it up, that sort of thing. And lighting, like I said, is very important. So I'm gonna get the rest of this laid out, and we're gonna get it the holes drilled and everything wired in at once. This is just gonna be a one and done. So this will be pretty quick. So at any rate, I'm going to set the tripod up. I'm going to get the string line up, and we're going to lay out the rest of the lights. I have the four corners up right now, and I got a screw in each corner. So I run the strings, and then I run a cross pattern, and that gives me my center. So let's get this done, and I'm going to hop up afterwards, and we're going to staple off the rest of the wire, and it'll be a great time. All right, so we got our strings up, and that's a good sign. So I got a full grid up here. So I got the four corners, and we're gonna have one in between each of these. So this string is gonna help me line things up, because every now and again, not always, and it's not always a big deal either, but sometimes these outside walls are a little bit out, whatever. I'm not super concerned about that. But what I am concerned about is when you start making a grid with lights, it actually makes it obvious, because when you look down the line after the lights are in, you can see if it's a little bit out. Just because you can actually line up with the sight line. You can't do that with the wall. So it's not usually a big deal if it's, you know, a little bit out here and there, not a big deal. So I got it going all the way around in a square, and then I've got a cross line here which is going right there, and you'll notice it goes along that stick there, so that's a little batten strip. So yeah, I'm gonna have to take a little bit more out with this one here, just this one, and be the two either side, just because it's gonna keep going on that line. And I'll show you the issue with that typically is that it lands right on a joist, and it screws up our line. It's not going to screw up our line, however, and here's why. So I absolutely love these lights, especially when I'm doing soffits outside. So these are puck lights. They're a relatively new product. See how thin they are? So the purpose of that is you drill it out, you stick it in, and you're going to have a 1.5 inch joist in the way. Not a big deal, because you can turn it some way to make it work. And you never have to go through a joist. You should never go through a joist. That's very important to understand. You never do that. That's a structural member of the house. So if you go through a joist or truss, any of that, you're affecting the integrity of the house. So you never want to drill those out. You don't want to affect them in any way. A piece of wood is basically as strong as its weakest point, which means if you cut in and you leave 2 inches left of the original member after your notch or whatever it is you're doing, that entire piece is worth 2 inches all the way through, not 5.5 or whatever it originally was. So that's a big no-no, and we know that on site. So that's why they came out with this product, and it's great. And they almost always come in these bulk packs, because if you get one, typically you get many. And they're very common now. I like them a lot. I use them quite often. I prefer cans. The reason I prefer cans is that you can just swap a light bulb. If these go, you got to change out the fixture. The transformer can probably stay if it has one. Some of them it's built in, but usually you got to swap out the fixture. It's an LED product. But for the garage here, I'm not super concerned. And they do have a long life. I'm not worried about it. And I got a 10 pack. I need 9 of them. Got 1 extra, and I'll hold on to that just in case. So let's get this marked up, and we'll drill it out. All right, so I'm going up and I'm finding centers between all these lines that I've put up. So sometimes math hurts, all right? And math, as a carpenter, I can tell you right now, it's a point of error a lot of times. If you can reduce the math you have to do in your head, it's generally best, even if you're good at it, because, every now and then you make a mistake. So generally speaking, for me, the less I have to pull out a tape measure, the better. And that's a matter of experience. There's a lot of times I kind of just put things up and mark things as they are. But in this case, we're going to take a measurement, and I'm going to show you how I find center kind of the safe way. Because there are, like I said, a lot of areas where there's room for error. So I'm going to show you how I avoid it when I'm finding center. Alright, so my easy way of finding center, I'm going to start with an overall measurement. So I'm going to hook on to this screw here. I can go to the other side. I got 183 about. So 183.5, and we got that's 40, 90, 93, 90, 91.5. So that's approximate. I wasn't that careful when I took the measurement. So I'm going to mark out 91.5 this way. That's going to be close enough. I'm going to mark it out the other way. I'm going to show you what I'm up to here. So when I took that measurement, I wasn't very careful. And the reason I wasn't careful is because I don't care. When you're splitting hairs, you're literally splitting hairs. So whether the measurement, when I split it, is too big or too small, either way, you measure either way the same. And what you get are 2 points that are very, very close together. So now I come in and I can literally just eyeball center. And that's about it. So I drill there, I'm good. If it's about a 1/16 off or so, no one's ever going to know the difference, not even me. So A lot of times it's not even that close. Sometimes there's an inch difference. Like I said, when I take that overall measurement and I'm finding center, I just, whatever the nearest measurement that's easy to split. And for splitting, that's actually quite easy. So let's say you're splitting, and let's focus on the fractions. So, people use fractions and measurements, and that's the difficult thing to work with for most. So if you're splitting a fraction in half, all you have to do is, let's say it's 3/8. Well, the 8, all right, the common denominator, you just double it, all right? So half of 3/8 is 3/16. Half of 3/4 is 3/8. Half is a quarter. So that's kind of the easy way of doing that. But I always bring it up to something that's easy to split. And as long as those two lines that I put up there are within an inch, you can eyeball the rest of the way. It'll never make one iota of difference. So that's all I do. So I'm going to get the other 3 of these done. And then I'm going to mark out the center, take down the string line, and we'll drill it out. This, by the way, is what your string line should look like when you wrap it up. I'll show you how to do that one day. In the meantime, just know that I learned that from setting forms in concrete. It's the quick way and the efficient way of wrapping up line and being able to disperse it after, pretty quickly. But I can wrap up a ball of yarn really, really quick. I did hundreds and hundreds of feet of this a day when I was in concrete. Alright, so now we're ready. Get our line started. So just to be clear, if you're getting work done like that, and someone's asking you what the pitch of your roof is, that's why. I have a low pitch roof, and it is really difficult to work with. So let's have a look. So we got wires down in all these holes, and here's the end point. So I did a bit of a spiral pattern. That way I can conserve as much line as possible. I didn't bother explaining anything up there because, man, it was uncomfortable. So basically, I came up through here, and from here, I ran it all the way around in a spiral pattern to the middle. There. And from there, I just started tacking it backwards. And yeah, it worked out pretty good. So I got a decent amount of slack, so I can wire all this in now and call it a day. So I didn't bother putting it all on camera because I wanted to do it in a hurry. I got all this together and realized I didn't run a hotline for the exterior light. And no, there's another line coming up out of that other light on the outside. And it goes to a junction box in the garage, and then it juts out 3 different ways. So I'm probably tearing that apart, but I'm thinking I'm going to use that junction box because it is exposed in the garage. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And I'm going to use it to run a couple floodlights. But I didn't run a hot line to it. So I ran that line. I'm going to tie that in and we're going to continue on. Alright, so as you may have noticed, it's now the next day. Didn't really do an intro, just went right into it. So I'm going to get the exterior fixture on, and I'm going to tie all this together and should light up. Man, the birds are going crazy over there. Yeah, yelling match at each other. And I always save these screws. When you're going through this stuff, that's something you always wind up needing. Alright, so this is messed up. Let's see what we got going on in here. So what I'm going to do, this wire here is in okay shape. I saw it up in the attic, and it goes to a junction box. And it's a fine junction box because it is going to remain accessible. So I'm going to leave that, and what I'm likely going to do is eventually connect in some floodlights that'll go on with the garage light. I don't really want them going on with the front light, the front door light, but they're fine to go on with the garage door light. Just going to take this tape off and see why it's taped. That might just be a marker to show it's a hot, or it might be that there was an issue there. I don't think he would have messed around with this. Yeah. So at one point this was a live line. So the reason you would have two black lines coming out is because if you have this going to the switch, then you only need the black lines going to the switch and a ground, which this has. So you would run just a 14-2 out to the switch, mark them both black, because you don't need to bring a neutral in. So I don't know how this was wired before. It's different now, but whatever. There we go. Yeah. It is a little confusing because that means that this was all power at one point. So I'm going to go ahead and connect all this together because the other side is going to be a little more accessible. But what that means for me is that I'm going to have to go back up into the attic and trace where this line goes and make sure it's disconnected at that point, which shouldn't be too hard. I might even be able to just access it from down below because the junction box is in the garage. When you get light fixtures, they often come with wire nuts or morettes if you're watching from Canada. Don't use them. Use good quality morettes or wire nuts. Sorry, it's just not worth it. They're pretty cheap, and you want something okay quality. And the biggest risk when you're installing a fixture, an outside fixture, is losing these little nuts. Oh, there it goes. So this is it here, just a tiny little thing, and that's what holds the light on. And it always happens. I get a little cocky and I wind up dropping one, and they're very hard to find. So when you're connecting stranded to solid, and by stranded, see how it's all these hokey fibers, like hairs, rather than a solid piece. So stranded is nice because electricity actually flows on the outside of the copper, not inside. So when you do stranded, you actually get more surface area. But when you're connecting solid to stranded, a lot of times you put this on, and if you're not careful, it won't grab the stranded. It doesn't grab as well as the solid. So good practice is to have the stranded protrude the solids just a little bit. That way it kind of grabs first and then connects in. And you want these snug. You don't want to over tighten them, because all they're going to do if you over tighten them is they're going to pull that bracket and fold it in. So it's really kind of useless. So just get it tight enough. Alright, now the fun part. I'm going to go ahead and do this final hookup, and I'm throwing it in this box because I can. Alright, so if I turn this light off, the hot line will continue to have power. Lower one. That was easy. There. Okay. So I didn't find any black lines just laying around. So I'm going to make my pigtail with a white line, and I'm just going to mark it black. Yeah, breaker's out now. Accidentally touched the metal. It's like playing a game of Operation. What's that? Twice now? Alright, let's wrap this back up. Throw that breaker back on. I did it twice. I'll fix it later. I got to take this out again anyway at some point. I put it upside down. That's all. So these definitely weren't the easiest lights to put in. That's mostly because of the quantity. In terms of access and routing the lines, it wasn't that bad compared to doing the rest of the main floor. But obviously it's time. That's 9 lights, 10 lights I just did. So without further ado, that light. So there we go. Some glorious glowing watts. Beautiful. Just beautiful. Let's have a look outside here. Nice. All right. Well, that's good. That's good. Still more time in the day. It's not even dark yet.